everyone, my name is Shauna in case you know, and welcome back to another video. Hi everyone, here's me from the future. I've missed a couple uploads and I wanted to address that really quickly about what's been going on with me. I got the flu. Haven't got the flu since I was in high school and it really knocked me on my butt for a week. And I am on week 2 and I'm mostly better, but I still have a few symptoms and I'm not back to getting the calories that I need because I am so nauseous from the flu, but it's really unfortunately messed up my schedule and my routine a bit. And I've also been in the middle of comment crunching while being sick, which has been something. But here is a video that I had filmed before I was sick. So I feel like I haven't done a book tag in ages, but life has been sort of challenging lately, so I want to get back to doing some book tags because it's something that really makes me happy to film. The book tag that I'm going to be filming for today's video is the board game book tag. This one was created by Beautiful Bookworm and their YouTube channel will be linked down in the description below. As the title of this game suggests, there's going to be a bunch of board games in this tag and each board game is going to have a prompt to go with it, and I'm going to have to choose a book that I've read to match each prompt. The first prompt is Settlers of Catan is a gateway game. Name a book that got you into a new genre. So throughout like the start of my adult life and through most of middle school and everything, I was like, I'm not a romance person, I'm not into romance, it isn't my cup of tea. I definitely read books with romance, but I never read contemporary romance because I was always like, those are so boring, they aren't for me, they're written for other people. But then The Sun Is Also a Star was made into a movie and I saw the trailer and I was like, I love this cast. The premise sounds really interesting for this movie. I'm gonna get the book and read the book first. So I read the book, The Sun Is Also a Star, and honestly, it got me into the genre so much, and now romance is one of my most read genres. So The Sun Is Also a Star is by Nicola Yoon. In case you don't know, it is a young adult contemporary romance, and it follows a chance encounter and a one-day romance that occurs between this guy and this girl, and the girl is about to be deported back to her home country, so it is her final day in the US when she bumps into them, and she's not entirely sold on this love at first chance, and she's not entirely sold even on romance in general, so it's sort of like an unlikely romance that brews with a very bittersweet ending. I loved it so much, it got me into romance, and I've read so much romance since then. The next prompt is Balderdash is a game of ridiculously silly facts, words, and ideas. Name a silly/funny book that also taught you something. I always struggle to find books that I consider to be funny. Like there's books that I feel like are funny because they fit the genre, and then there's books that I feel like are funny because I personally find them funny, which is normally books that like are poorly written or like have a ridiculous premise. So it's like my idea of what's funny is different from like society's idea of what's funny, I guess, like when you're classifying things as different genres. So I'm gonna go with one that like the genre is like comedy and there's funny to it, but I learned some stuff out of it, and that is Embrace Your Weird by Felicia Day. So this is a book that is a self-help book that is helping you find ways to express your creative outlets. I learned a lot from it because it required a lot of inner reflection and it gave some ideas of things that I could be pursuing to have more creativity in your life. It was a bit fun. I don't know if I personally found it funny. I did find it fun because you get Felicia Day's quirky writing in there, and the way she writes is exactly how her personality is in real life, so if you like her funny goofy personality, you'll definitely like her writings. The next one says Smallworld. It's a world of slaughter after all. Smallworld is a game in which multiple armies are battling it out for control of the board. Name a book with epic battle or fight scenes. And it also has a little comment on there. If you don't read books with fight scenes, feel free to get creative and take your liberties with this question. So I read a lot of books with fight scenes because I really love fantasy, and the one that's coming to mind right now would be Kingdom of Ash, which is the final book in the Throne of Glass series. There is some epic battles in there where armies are converging and fighting on each other. So the Throne of Glass series is a series that starts out about this girl, and her name's Selena, and she is an assassin, but she is currently a slave and she's working in some slave mines. The prince comes and takes her from the mines and said, if you enter into my father's competition and win this competition, you will become his prized assassin and you will eventually gain your freedom. So it starts off with like this fun competition, but then it really evolves from there. There's a lot more to the plot, and by the end there's this huge battle, and a lot of the final book is just battles, which I was like going back and forth between like whether I would like it or whether I wouldn't like it, because like me and just reading nonstop battles like doesn't always work. However, Kingdom of Ash ended up being a 5-star read for me. It was one of my top 2 favorites in that series, so it was a really good book and there were some really epic fights in there. Next up, Sheriff of Nottingham, a bluffing game. Name a book with an epic heist. I always feel like I need to look at the definition of a heist whenever I hear that word, because nothing exactly comes to mind when I hear heist. So it's just saying a robbery. I feel like I don't read a ton of books with robberies, so we're gonna look up some books with heists in it and choose one off that list that I've read, because my brain right now is like coming up with nothing. Pulled up The Hobbit, so we're going with The Hobbit. There is a heist in there involving the dragon, Smog. So The Hobbit's a book that I studied in school when I was in middle school, and it quickly became one of my favorite books because I think a lot of my enjoyment of it was the discussion of the book in class. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much if I'd read it by myself. I read the first book of the Lord of the Rings series, The Fellowship of the Ring, recently-ish, like within the past couple of years, and I was so bored out of my mind. And so I think a lot of my enjoyment of The Hobbit just stemmed from the fact that like I really enjoyed reading it with my class. But The Hobbit is sort of like a prequel and a story on its own before the Lord of the Rings books, and it involved Bilbo Baggins, which is a character that you will know from Lord of the Rings if you haven't read it before. There is a lot of different creatures and just a lot of epicness in this big journey, and it's a journey through so many different lands. There's a heist in there, of course, there's a war, there's just so much to it that it's so hard to just succinctly describe what it's about. Next up says, Monopoly is a property trading game that involves buying and selling properties, paying rent, and trying to send everyone else into bankruptcy. Name a book that most resembles your real life. Maybe the main character shares your same profession, or maybe it takes place in your hometown. As always, feel free to be creative. I feel like I should choose a few different books because I feel like my life can't be described by just one book. There is no book that perfectly resembles my life. So let's go with a few different books. So we're gonna go with 5 Feet Apart for the chronic illness representation. I don't have cystic fibrosis. I have a bunch of different other health issues though, and in 2020 I spent a long span of time in the hospital. So I'm choosing that for that element. But I'm also in college, and so I'm gonna choose a new adult romance for that college experience that I experience on a regular basis. I was literally just doing Spanish homework before I started filming this video. The one that I'm going to choose for this is going to be Just Might Work by Katia Rose. I also felt really seen by the 2 main characters. I felt like they were both parts of who I am, but in different regards. They're very different characters, but I also felt so seen in both of them through their personalities. But also Comic-Cons and cosplay are a huge part of my life, and I wish that I had a book that I liked that I could choose for this, but the only book that's coming to mind with Comic-Cons, well, there's 2 books, and I wasn't a huge fan of either, is Geekerella and The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. I don't think that they're like representations of like what I'm really into in Comic-Cons, but they represent Comic-Cons, which is a huge part of my life. So there we go. I'm a mix of those 3 books if you want to try and compare my life to books. Next up says, 7 Wonders is a game in which you use cards to build one of the 7 wonders on the table in front of you. Name a book with awesome world building. I'm gonna go with Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. They're part of a historical fantasy series, and I think that the world building works so well for me in that series because there's the historical elements that are so like based in reality that they feel real, but then there's also the fantasy elements built into this world building. And so like my first thought is always you could do like high fantasy or like some very intense fantasy for world building, but I feel like Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows is a really creative and really solid like world building in a series. And the duology is a romance between 2 rivals in a newspaper company, and they both have these typewriters where they can send messages to each other, but initially they don't know who the other person is and who they're sending letters for, and they start to catch some feelings based on the letters when one of them gets sent to the war front. So it is a really fascinating and interesting duology. I wish I could read it again for the first time because I love it so much. The next one says, Pandemic is a cooperative game in which all the players are working together to eradicate diseases from the board. Name a book with an epic squad of friends. I really like the friend group and the students in the Vale Hall series, which starts off with The Deceivers, then goes to Scammed, then goes to Payback. This series is by Kristen Simmons. So this series is about a school for scam artists, and there's lots of twists and turns, but I've found that a lot of the main characters are really lovable. It's a really lovable cast, and it makes the book so enjoyable. And I think the series works so well for me because there is such enjoyable characters, but there's also epic plot twists. There is really fast-paced action. There is a cute romance. Just there's so many good things going for the series that makes me love it. And the final prompt, it says, A Ticket to Ride is a railway-themed game in which players are trying to connect train routes across the map. Name a book that took you on a journey. God, this one's hard because the one that's coming to mind is one that I don't really like, but I feel like for this one I need to choose one that I like. I swear sometimes my brain just blanks when I do book tags. I have like things written down a lot, but I feel like my answers that I wrote down were like very old answers, you know? We're gonna go with a series. We're gonna go with the Attack on Titan series. So this is a manga series, and this manga series really takes you on a journey. So like I would say that 2/3 or 3/4 of the series is when the characters are kids, and you find so many new things that unfold that just leave you like gasping for breath because it's so intense and there's so many changes, and then there's like a time skip, and then it gets even more intense and twisty and topsy-turvy. So it's a series about the society where the rest of humanity is stuck behind the walls, and these walls are to keep the people safe from titans that eat humans. And the series starts off with the main character and his two friends, and a abnormal titan that is very different from the rest of the titans comes and breaks the wall down. So titans rampage their city, and his mom gets killed. And the series starts off with his journey of trying to join the Survey Corps, who go out and explore the world and try and discover the mystery of titans and take down titans. And he is just pushed to this vengeance. He wants to revenge his mother's death. So it's a really fun series. It's also very emotional, but it is a really good one. I feel like there's so many people that would love Attack on Titan because of the content matter. They just don't get into it because it's manga and anime, and that kills me so much because there's so many people that I know that have tried to recommend Attack on Titan to, and they're like, I'm just not into manga and anime. And I'm like, please listen to me, try it. You love zombie stuff, you love post-apocalyptic stuff, you love dystopian stuff, you love action. Get into Attack on Titan, it's perfect. There's a little note here that says tag all of your nerdy gamer people. Not going to tag anyone for this, but if you'd like to do this book tag, all of the questions will be linked down in the description below, and as I said, the tag creator will also be linked down in the description below. So that's all for today's video. I hope you really enjoyed it. I just totally dropped my laptop charger, but that's okay, we're vibing. I hope all of you are having a great week, and I hope to see all of you in my next video. Until next time everyone, goodbye.